I'm Joanne Crepeau, and I'm the CEO for the Girl Scouts of Maine. Thank you for joining me for this special event this evening. It's going to be, I think, a very important discussion. This event is an opportunity for 3 inspiring Girl Scouts to share their once-in-a-lifetime experiences as Girl Scout delegates to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, and their continued work on gender equity, both locally and globally. This event also kicks off our month-long celebration honoring amazing Girl Scouts, both adults and adult volunteers, in their accomplishments throughout the membership year. You know, one day of celebrating just isn't enough, so we will continue our celebration Saturdays throughout the month of June. Through these celebration videos, we will showcase inspirational Girl Scouts who have become strong young women, capable leaders, active citizens, and challenge seekers. We will honor amazing adult volunteers as role models and as individuals who have the vision and the passion to create opportunities for girls to succeed and who are determined to launch girls into a lifetime of leadership. Each Saturday at 9 a.m., we will share 2 celebration videos showcasing recognitions and honorees. The videos will be able to be viewed at any time after that on our YouTube channel and from our website. We will begin this Saturday, June 5th, honoring our graduating Ambassador Girl Scouts and the Service Unit President's Awards. The full schedule for the videos is listed on our website at girlscoutsofmaine.org/annual celebration. Now, to begin this evening's program, I have the great pleasure of introducing our very special guest, Girl Scout alum and Maine Secretary of State, the Honorable Shenna Bellows. Secretary of State Shenna Bellows is Maine's 50th Secretary of State and first female Secretary of State. She previously served as a state senator representing 11 cities and towns in southern Kennebec County. Prior to elected service, she served as executive director of the Maine Holocaust and Human Rights Center, ran a small consulting business, served as the executive director of the ACLU of Maine, and served in AmeriCorps and the Peace Corps, among other roles. She grew up in Hancock, Maine, where she was a Brownie and a Girl Scout too. And she now resides in Manchester with her husband, Brandon, and their cats. Welcome, Secretary Bellows.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I am thrilled to be here. Thank you to the volunteers, especially parents, for all the work that you do with Girl Scouts today. Congratulations to the Future Leaders Scholarship recipients and Silver and Gold Award Girl Scouts. And I'm so proud of our graduating ambassadors. I'm excited to be on this panel tonight with Devlin, Grace, and Jasmine. And I have to say, when I first joined the Brownies and then Girl Scouts, I was living in Hancock, Maine, in a house my parents built themselves. We didn't have any electricity, no running water, not even an inside bathroom. We were poor. But in the Girl Scouts, it doesn't matter how much money you have or who you are or where you come from. The Girl Scouts are all about equality. And I loved Girl Scouts. I went to Girl Scout camp at Camp Natarswig. I went to Caribou Camp. I earned badges and I sold a lot of Girl Scout cookies. I credit my success in politics today to the leadership skills and interpersonal skills that I developed in the Girl Scouts. It was a huge part of my growing up and my development as a leader. So it's so incredibly appropriate that we're talking about gender equality and thinking about human rights for women and girls all in our nation and all across the world. When I was a kid growing up in that cabin without electricity, I had a copy of the Bill of Rights on my bedroom wall. I was obsessed with the Bill of Rights, the idea of the First Amendment, freedom of speech, 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. And on my office wall behind me is a copy of the original Maine Constitution when Maine became a state in 1820. And I still get a thrill every time I walk into my office and see the Constitution on that wall. But it certainly wasn't perfect in 1820, because at that time, only white men had the right to vote. My grandmother is still alive today. She's 101 years old. When she was born in 1920, that was the year that women first earned the right to vote. And I think about that as Maine's first female Secretary of State, that it took 200 years for Maine to elect a woman in this office, that we have Maine's first female governor, Maine's first female archivist. Someday I hope we see the last of the firsts, and the Girl Scouts will be a big piece of that. I'm really looking forward to tonight's conversation about gender equality. I've had a lot of experiences in my career with discrimination based on gender, and of breaking that glass ceiling, of breaking down those barriers. And so I think that's why these conversations and this work is so important. I'll just give you two examples. My first job out of college, I went to work for a private company, and a year went by and I received a raise. I was really excited. And then I found out that all the men who had started on the very same day in the very same job that I had received a higher raise than me and my female colleagues. I fought for equal pay for equal work in that workplace, and I won. But then when I ran for state senator, I supported efforts to make equal pay for equal work the law of the land here in Maine. And that was just a few years ago. My other experience was when I went to Panama in the Peace Corps. I was a volunteer there. And I got involved with a group called Women in Development, Gender and Development. And we started a scholarship program for girls because one of the things that we learned was that that right to equal education that we take for granted here in the United States was not the case for many girls in Panamanian communities, especially in rural areas. And so embedded sexism was holding girls back, and we needed to support their ability just to go to high school. They needed scholarships to make that work. And so those were just two examples of seeing firsthand the negative impacts of gender discrimination. So I'm so excited to have this conversation tonight. I'm thrilled at the work that the Girl Scouts are doing to lift up girls and create the future leaders of America. I know some of the girls in this conversation and some of the girls listening at home, you're going to be the next secretaries of state, governors, elected leaders, business leaders, community leaders. You are our future. So let's get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Shenna. Those were very inspirational words, and I thank you so much for joining us today. Excuse me. So I would like to just give a quick backdrop of the subject today and on the Commission on the Status of Women. Each year, Girl Scouts of the USA, which is our national organization, joins over 5,000 women and girls from around the world at the United Nations headquarters in New York to participate in the Commission on the Status of Women, a commission of the UN. Every year, national representatives gather for a 2-week session to evaluate progress on gender equality and to identify challenges, set global standards, and formulate concrete policies to promote gender equality and the advancement of women worldwide. Girl Scouts of the USA and the World Association of Girl Guides participate to bring the voice of girls and young women to the global stage. So annually, GSUSA selects 4 councils to send delegations of 3 to 4 girls each to represent it at the CSW, the Commission for Status of Women, to provide the girl voice and perspective on critical issues relating to gender equality. As delegates, girls engage on GSUSA's work around global advocacy, learn about global issues, see firsthand how global entities function, and let their voices be heard on key global issues affecting girls and young women. So Shenna and I will now follow up with girls on their CSW experience. But first, I'd like our amazing panelists to introduce themselves. And so if you would, girls, tell us where you're from, your grade in school, your Girl Scout level, and your troop. And so let's start with Devlin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Devlin. I am in Farmingdale, Maine. I'm a junior in high school, so an ambassador Girl Scout, and I am a Juliet Girl Scout.
Thank you. How about Grace?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace. I am a junior in high school, a first-year ambassador in Brewer, Maine, and I am with Girl Scout Troop 911.
Thank you. And Jasmine?
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm from Falmouth, Maine. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm a senior, and I'm also a Juliet, like Devlin.
Great. Thank you. I also want to just let the audience know that if they have questions that they would like for the panel, you can certainly use the Q&A feature on Zoom to post your questions, and we will address those at the end of our conversation. So let me start off with asking Grace a question. Grace, can you tell us what the CSW opportunity was supposed to be?
Sure. So CSW, as you so magnificently put it, Joanne, is basically the largest gathering of feminists in the world. And basically a lot government bodies and private organizations come together to talk about what they have done in the past year to achieve gender equality and what they plan to do in the next year. And so our role as girl delegates was to give voice to girls, because girls don't have, like, due to our age, we just don't have the ability to make decisions. And so it's really important to the UN, and it's becoming an increasing priority to the UN to be able to hear from girls specifically, where that we are faced with not only not being able to make decisions in government, but also facing gender inequality. And so our role as girl delegates was to come from our own backgrounds and bring our own experiences to show these people that are actually making the decisions what we want to see happen, what things are going to benefit us best, because no one really knows what's going to benefit girls best except for us. And so we were there to not only bring our own voices, but to learn about what other people are doing in other states, maybe other organizations that we don't know about, and even internationally, we're able to learn about what people are doing to achieve gender equality and kind of bring those methods back to our communities and help advance gender equality with the people that we know.
Thank you so much, Grace. Jasmine, I have a question to follow up on that. Why was 2020 a significant year for the CSW?
So 2020 was really important because it was this marker for the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action, which was this, or is this, really progressive blueprint for achieving gender equality. And even though we still have yet to meet a lot of the goals from that, and no country has met all the goals outlined in the plan, it's a really good general, written out and well-planned idea and like set of goals to reach gender equality. And so because of the Beijing Platform for Action, there was going to be the gender equality forums to go along with it, which are now happening this year. And those were really helpful for kind of marking out where we're at now and where we can get to in the future, and like what countries' plans are going to be to achieve gender equality.
Oh, Joanne, I think you're on mute. It's not Zoom if someone's not on mute, right?
Right? Somebody's got to do it. I'm glad I did it. So thank you. All right, back to my question. Devlin, tell us how you continued on the work of gender equality throughout the summer of 2020, despite CSW being canceled.
Yeah, so like you said, with CSW being canceled, the 16 of us or so that were supposed to attend as girl delegates really wanted to still make a change. At this point, we didn't know for sure if we were going to get to attend this year. We just knew that we all still cared about gender equality. Even though we weren't getting to go to the UN and have this fancy title, we still wanted to make a difference. So we decided as a group to put together a virtual gender equality series. This was a 6-week long series with girls from across the country, as well as a few from other countries. We focused on 4 core issues. These were girls' access to education, gender-based violence, STEM, and the gap in girls' access to STEM, as well as girls and women in leadership. The other 2 were kind of an introduction and then a planning on how girls could take action on whatever issue they cared most about. So within these 6 weeks, we got to help inspire a lot of girls to make a difference in their own communities. And this kind of created this domino effect of change like we had wanted to do with the UN, just in a different way and closer to home with Girl Scouts.
Amazing. Thank you, Devlin. So I have a question for all 3 of you. Clearly the work of 2020 didn't stop. Tell us about your 2021 experience with CSW. What were each of your roles? Go ahead.
So I was a facilitator for a Girls Caucus event, which was a really amazing opportunity because we kind of got to hear a lot about different girls' opinions, and we got to have not only our input, but help other girls have their input put in on documents that were actually going to be used by the UN, which was really amazing because it kind of really helped us understand that our voices were being heard.
As well as Jasmine did the Girls Caucus. In addition to that, I and 2 other Girl Scouts, as well as some girls from the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, helped put on a virtual series. And I specifically, along with the 2 other Girl Scouts from North Carolina, helped put on one around how to use social media to advocate, both about talking about your experience with the UN and what you were doing throughout the week. Since we were all at our computers, we shared out with others from our community how to do that. And then also just advocating in the rest of our lives, how we can use social media to do that now that we have that great tool.
So I actually had 3 roles at CSW. My first was as a facilitator. Basically, it's a very similar thing to what Jasmine and Devlin were explaining, a little bit different though. I facilitated with another girl from Illinois, who's not a Girl Scout actually, on feminist leadership and like ways to engage girls specifically in leadership, just like in their own communities and kind of on a broader scale. My second role was as a speaker for the GSUSA event on political participation and leadership, where I spoke a little bit on my own political participation and some of the things that I've been doing to pursue gender equality within the field of politics. And my third role was as an advocacy liaison, which is basically to follow around one specific issue that and kind of like look into how that issue impacts girls. And my issue was women, peace, and security. So basically looking at how women are engaged in decision making when it comes to violent conflict, and how women are disproportionately affected by violent conflict.
Fascinating. I have a little follow-up question for you, Grace, because you've used the word feminist a couple of different times. And I love the word personally, but it doesn't always have a positive connotation. So what's your definition of a feminist?
To me, a feminist is literally any person who wants to pursue equal rights and is taking steps to make sure that women and men and all genders in between are treated equally and have access to the same opportunities. That is it. I know that feminism does have some negative connotations, and but literally, if you have any hesitations about being called a feminist, I would honestly prefer it if you didn't call yourself a feminist, and if it's the word that's barring you from taking positive steps toward gender equality, don't call yourself a feminist and just pursue equal rights. Honestly, I think that's the best thing.
Thank you. That's very refreshing, and I really like your definition. I'm going to ask Devlin this question. We've talked about issues that you focused on for the gender equality series, Girls in Leadership, STEM, gender-based violence, and access to education. During your time at CSW, did you focus in on any particular theme, and which one and how?
Yeah, so like I had said, during the gender equality series, I really focused on girls in leadership and gender-based violence. And this so happened to be the core focuses of CSW this year. So focusing on one of the two was really difficult, but I've always really cared about having women in leadership, because I think, like all of us have mentioned, having the voice at the table gets everyone a lot farther. So I really focused on that. I went to a lot of different webinars. There were some on people's personal experiences. There were some on experiences that other people have learned about from countries that they had moved from, and the experiences of how biased the leadership system is for males, as well as attending some webinars, teachings on how to be a better leader myself. That way I could encourage others to be a better leader. So it was difficult to pick, but I definitely focused on women in leadership the most.
Thank you.
Grace, was there any particular session that you found impactful, and tell us why?
Sure. So 2 sessions actually that I found really, really interesting. One was actually focusing on several genocides that are taking place in Africa, which was honestly, it was so disturbing to me to kind of realize that there were these huge human rights crises taking place in the world that I just had no idea about because the media isn't talking about it. That was really, really disturbing to me. And it was really impactful, not because just, I guess I would say not because genocide is such a big deal, which it is, but because when we think of what I consider myself very informed, a lot of my friends do as well. No one had any idea that this was happening. When we talked about this, the participants that attended from our delegation, when we talked about this after, we were just completely flabbergasted that we didn't know what was happening. And so it was really impactful to me, not only just kind of focusing on the genocide and multiple genocides in Africa, specific kind of that session focused on one in Sudan, but kind of it made me more cognizant of the media that I'm consuming and made me more mindful of the where I'm getting my information and that making sure that I am taking in information from not only reliable sources, but sources that talk about the hard things, because if you're not going to talk about the hard things, then like, how is it reliable? And I think that's something that really, really stuck with me, where truth telling in the news is so important, but like the whole truth is also very important. Where we are not separate. Americans are not separate from things that are happening just because they're happening an ocean away. And it's really important for us to be informed about human rights crises. And then another one that I found really impactful was the LGBTQ plus conversation circle. I'm bisexual and I live in a community where that's not super widely accepted. And so it was really great to be surrounded by a bunch of people pursuing the same thing that I am, who really identify with me and who I see myself in.
Thank you, Grace. Jasmine, how was the girl voice represented at the 65th session of the CSW?
So I kind of talked about this a bit earlier. I was talking about how the Girls Caucus allowed us to share our voices. But so like the way they did that was we were given a document, and as a group, we reviewed the document and we were able to make suggestions on how we should change the wording to be more specific to girls' problems. Because when you have a document written by adults, they're not going to understand exactly how girls' voices need to be represented and the problems we are facing. So we got to be able to talk about what we thought were more important and why we thought they should change wording to say girls and women rather than just saying women, because those kinds of things are very important when you're writing legal documents. And in addition to the Girls Caucus, there was also a couple other events I attended, like the North American Caucus, which was mostly adults. But even there, I was able to have my voice heard. And as we were talking about different topics and making suggestions as to what people should be doing, girls and women's voices were valued as equals rather than just valuing an adult's voice over someone who is not yet an adult like myself. So that was really great. And it was amazing that we got to have our voices heard so well, because it's so often that people brush off voices that are so young. And then also when we finished CSW, we got to write a lot of conclusions and a lot of we got to write a lot about what we had learned and then share everything, which was really amazing of GSUSA.
This is a question for any of you all. Is there anything surprising that you learned about gender equality through this experience?
I'd love to answer this one. I think one thing that I found surprising about gender equality is when I first started out as when I was first selected as a delegate so long ago, it was like a year and a half ago, it was crazy. I didn't really understand how interconnected so many issues of gender equality are. We see things, we like separate them in our brains into little boxes. And so it's been really fascinating to me, and like not in a good way at all, but it's been really fascinating to see how the things that we think of as individual are actually connected, like feminist legislation and legislation that will improve gender equality actually relates to improving girls' education and like making sure that girls stay in school, which will then raise the marriage age and the age at which girls give birth to children, which will then decrease the poverty rate. And that's been really cool to see how like making the little changes can have big impacts, and it's been really inspiring.
Jasmine or Devlin, any thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think to add on to what Grace said, because I definitely agree with seeing how intersectional everything was really fascinating, but also seeing the numbers and getting kind of faces and real people to the statistics that I had always read, hearing those always kind of like, oh yeah, that's not good. But then hearing people talk about how they were impacted by these things has always kind of just hit home for me. And I'm a personal person. Stories and emotions were the big thing for me.
Thank you. Jasmine?
And kind of like to go off what Devlin was saying, like getting to hear from girls from in places like I heard from girls from Kenya, I heard from girls in India, and just hearing from girls all around the world was really amazing, because you got to see that even though we're all in these really different parts of the planet, we're all kind of going through very similar issues, and that even though we're thousands of miles apart, we're all kind of going through the same thing.
Thank you. Again, all girls, this question, what advice would you give to young women and girls who are experiencing issues related to gender equality or want to make a difference on the issue of gender equality? Any advice?
I think my advice, at least for girls who want to make a difference on the issue of gender equality, is to not be afraid of applying for an opportunity that you think, oh, I won't get in, apply for it. Or reaching out to somebody who you think could help you focus on your issue or work on your issue, reach out to them. The worst that happens is they don't respond. The best thing that happens is they help you make a difference. Chances are they're also going to want to help make a difference with you, and seeing your passion for this issue that you're obviously have if you want to make that difference will inspire them, and they can help inspire you to make a difference. I think that's my big advice for that.
And just to add on to that, I think there is no action pursuing gender equality that is too small. Just do what you can. For me, that means speaking with my legislators. For athletes, that means using their platform and their wide Twitter following to promote gender equality issues and promote awareness about specific things. And so there's whatever you're able to do is worth doing, and it's not silly in the least, is what I was afraid of actually, but it's worthwhile, so go for it.
And then kind of like to go off the other part of the question, to answer the whole girls who have issues related to gender equality, just for those girls to know that there was going to be 11,000 people attending last year's CSW. That's 11,000 people who all believe in gender equality, 11,000 people who really want to fight for gender equality and who are there to support you. And that even if you are, there isn't necessarily a lot of support, there's girls out there like us and adults out there like Shenna and Joanne who would really love to help you and to be there to support you.
Absolutely. So this is another question for all three of you. What did you learn about yourself because of this experience?
I'll open this one again. I think one of the biggest things for myself and most of the other girls outside of this Maine delegation as well has been growing the confidence in ourselves to talk to people and become friends with the people from our delegation. Like now I talk to Grace all the time, and Jasmine and I are good friends, and I'm good friends with girls from Nebraska and California, and that seems terrifying before we met them. But then also just not being afraid to talk to people who you think have more power and seem scary because they have these fancy titles, but they are also human. And I think learning that and being more confident in myself and speaking to others or speaking up in platforms like this one has been a big skill that I've learned.
I think for me, it's been kind of the recognition that I am as entitled to speak up about things that I care about, and as entitled to my opinion about things that I care about, as Devlin was saying, people with fancy titles, people with the ability to make the decisions, and I have a right to contribute what I have to say. And that's been a super important thing that I learned in November of 2019 at like our first meeting with the CSW delegation, that I then used a year later to talk to my legislator and push through a bill. So that's been really something that, like, I would say another piece of advice, I guess, where we're people and we get to have a say, and that's it. Like, do it.
And kind of similar to like what Grace and Devlin have been saying, that for girls like us, it was really amazing because we got to talk to all these people. And for me in particular, like, I tend to be a very shy person, so it really gave me confidence to like believe in my voice and to be able to go out there and talk to people. And also, as you like watch a lot of things and you're in a lot of like meetings with these big fancy people who have these intense titles, you get to see that they're really human. They really are just like everybody else, and they'll like be making jokes and things like that, which just kind of shows you how human they are and how much they really do care about us, which it was really amazing to just kind of see that.
Thank you, girls. So does the work towards gender equality continue on for you, and how?
I can open this question. So I think for all of us, I hope the answer is yes. For me specifically, I will be attending the Generation Equality Forum in Paris, virtually, of course. And that is basically a continuation of the discussion that began at CSW and then continued at the Generation Equality Forum in Mexico virtually, and then we'll be finally wrapping up in Paris. I'm also looking to currently taking action in politics and through legislation, which I'm super excited about. I'm working with my representative to push through a bill that's actually kind of supporting one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is ending child marriage. And I don't know what comes after that. I'm hoping to work in some sort of policy, but no matter what, it's not going to be over for me.
Yeah, I'll follow that. So like Grace said, I'm also going to be attending the Generation Equality Forum virtually. In addition to that, I also have my Gold Award, where I am hoping to help empower youth to be in the powerful decision-making places that I was once terrified to be in, but now love being a part of. I'm doing that with the help of Shenna, because she was my local senator when I first started that. I was very happy to see her go into this higher position while working on an issue that relates to that. That's a little personal touch that made it even better for me, as well as doing a sociology college course where I'm talking about different social problems in a more learning environment than a professional environment. So.
And so, same as Grace and Devlin both said, like, yes, I am definitely going to continue working with gender equality. For me, I absolutely love STEM. That's generally how I got into this in the first place, was because I noticed there's a lot of inequality when it comes to STEM. And so I'm going to be working with local groups, such as my robotics team, to try to empower girls to join it. I'm currently one of 3 girls on the team of over 50 kids. So it shows kind of how we really do need to be empowering girls. And so I hope to work with them. I'm going to be doing a Gold Award in the next year. That's going to have something to do with this. I'm just not sure quite yet what my focus will be.
Wonderful, thank you. I just want to ask if there's any audience members that would like to ask our panelists a question, please post in the Q&A feature in the Zoom application. And while we give that a moment, I have a final question for all the girls. Did Girl Scouts prepare you to participate as a delegate on a global level? And if so, how?
I can open this.
First of all,
Go ahead,
absolutely.
Grace.
Oh, sorry. Absolutely. I mean, if we're talking strictly about what we did in preparation for this event, we met, the delegation met twice a month, basically to talk about what we would be talking about at the UN. And kind of in a broader sense, Girl Scouts was like the first place, even like outside of school, outside of my home, where I could interact with my peers and share my opinions on things that are happening. And the things that were happening as a daisy were like, oh, what craft are we gonna do? Oh, I wanted to make something different and I'm gonna say that. And it was the first kind of environment that I really felt that sisterhood that I came to, I guess, be a part of in CSW.
I'd say, as Grace mentioned, at the younger age, working with my daisies and having a bunch of friends in Girl Scouts with me, to then growing older and having a troop of 4 or 5. We then got to talk about some of the closer things that we cared about, and we got to do big things like travel, where we traveled to New York, and I realized how much I loved traveling and learning about other people and other cultures. And then becoming a Juliet Girl Scout when my troop disbanded, and then I had to work independently. Work independently on the badges I cared about. It helped me grow as a independent, self-motivated person, which then helped me in my motivation for CSW and how I worked for CSW, as well as the Gender Equality Series.
Great, thank you. Jasmine, anything to add to that?
And kind of like to go off what Grace and Devlin have been saying, not only like Girl Scouts has done an amazing job from being a daisy to all the way up to where I'm at, which is being a senior, in preparing you to build your confidence, to make you more outgoing, to encourage you to try out these different leadership positions. But when it comes more specifically to like the preparation we did for CSW, we got the opportunity to read like different countries' reports. We got the opportunities to look at what different regions were doing for like CSW and for gender equality, which was a really great chance so that we could be more prepared for when we talk to people from all around the world, because we got to understand a more global perspective as to what it was like. And I feel like Girl Scouts in general does a really great job of that.
Thank you. That's all amazing answers, and I'm so glad to hear that. We do have a question from the audience, and they wondered if you would give, what kind of advice you would give to younger Girl Scouts?
I think the best advice that I can give is, like, I know we hear this all the time, and I got so sick of hearing this personally, but don't be afraid to speak up, or even if you are afraid to speak up, do it anyway, because the speaking up is what got me to the UN. It's what got me through all of those super long days of like hearing about what was happening all over the world. It's what got certain things in motion for me in my personal life. And so self-advocacy for your own, for what you want to see, and also advocacy on like behalf of other people, begins when you're young and begins with asking questions and making your opinion heard on things that maybe people wouldn't even consider to be related to bigger issues like gender equality, but where you're already developing that skill, it will be incredibly helpful to the bigger cause later on.
Thank you. Anything to add, Jasmine?
And kind of similar to what Grace said, don't be afraid to try things. There's a lot of times in my life when I've been too scared to actually step up and try to do something. And when you don't do that, you're never going to get the opportunity to do something like this. So just kind of putting yourself out there, it does take a lot of effort sometimes, but it's really worth it when you actually get things done. And you're going to meet a lot of great people if you do that.
Devlin, anything to add?
Yeah, I think this kind of goes off of what Jasmine said, but the advice that I got when the day I applied to CSW and the reason I applied to CSW was to try out for anything and everything. The worst thing that happens is it was a application process or an interview process that didn't work out. So you got that experience, and getting the experience of applying and interviewing will help you in other experiences you can apply for, and then later on in job life or colleges. And I think that advice kind of really hit home for me and has stuck with me since, and I want to share that.
Thank you. Well, I just want to close by saying that on behalf of the Girl Scouts of Maine, I want to thank my co-hosts, Shenna Bellows, and our impressive Girl Scouts, Grace and Jasmine and Devlin, for sharing in this opportunity, really, to know more about the terrific work you did on women's rights and women's equity issues. So thank you to all and our audience members for joining us in this event, and I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.